Hello, my name's Claire and this is Stitch Em Sew. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Friday Sews. Friday Sews was created by the lovely Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room. It's just a great way of bringing the sewing community together. So if you pop in the hashtag Friday Sews into the search bar on YouTube, you will find a whole host of us all posting under the hashtag. So thank you to Jen, and please do go ahead and check out all the other YouTubers posting under the hashtag. So in terms of what I will be talking about in the video today, a little bit about what I've been sewing and some plans that I've got as well. Now, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you will know that I've been working on a collaboration project with the fantastic Crystal from my social thread. Crystal and I have become friends through Facebook and YouTube. It's just so lovely having people that you can talk to about sewing. I don't know about you, but whilst my family have a certain amount of interest because they know that I love it, there is a certain amount of sort of glazing over after a while if I talk about it too much. So it's so nice to be able to connect with other people, even if it is, you know, just online, to be able to, you know, talk sewing. And myself and Crystal and also Adele from Sew for Serenity have formed quite a friendship, and we are planning on meeting up a little bit later on in the year, and you know, we have some Zoom sort of sewing chats and things as well, so that's just been really lovely. So when Crystal and I decided that we were going to collaborate together, we took some time to think about what pattern we might like to sew up, and the first one we decided on was the Jennifer Lauren handmade Bastian culottes. And then we decided, because obviously this was a separate scenario, that perhaps it would be nice to do a top as well. And we'd both not made the pearl cardigan from Tilly and the Buttons, so we thought that perhaps those two would pair quite nicely together. And so those are the two patterns that we've gone with: the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan, I'll pop a stock photo in, and the Jennifer Lauren handmade Bastian clogs, again I'll pop a stock photo in. So what I think I'll do is I'll just run through both patterns with my thoughts and feelings on the two patterns as well. But before I do that, I'm going to pop in a sneak peek of Crystal's lovely two lovely items, and I'll pop a picture in here. And as you'll see, they are absolutely gorgeous. I think she's made some really lovely versions. I'm not going to talk about them in any detail, because if you hop over to Crystal's channel, and I will pop a link in the description note to Crystal's channel, you will be able to see all about Crystal's makes as well. Now, the first thing I think I'll talk about is the pearl cardigan. This is one of Tilly and the Buttons' more recent patterns. I would say it's come out in maybe the last year or so, and this is the pearl cardigan here. Now, the pearl, you can there's three different versions that you can make with this and you have got the long sleeves with sort of just a straight sleeve. You've got the long sleeve but with a balloon sleeve option, and there's also a short sleeve option, and they've all got this lovely wrap over front and tie detail. So the option that I've gone through for is just the standard long sleeve version, and I've chosen to make it in this lovely teal jersey fabric that I've picked up from Pound Fabrics. Both of my fabrics that I've used are from Pound Fabrics. I just find that their jersey is super good quality, and but also very reasonably priced, and I knew that I just wanted a plain fabric for the top, because as you'll see in a minute, my my bottoms, my Bastian culottes are in a pattern fabric, so I just wanted to go for a plain jersey fabric, and I thought this would make an ideal fabric for it. So it's a nice sort of lightweight cardigan. Now with the pearl cardigan, you can wear it as a top or as a cardigan. With my particular version, I will probably wear it more as a cardigan style rather than a top, just because of how the end result has come out on me. Now, the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan is quite a cropped design. You'll see from the picture at the stock photo that it comes up to the model's sort of top of her jeans waistband, and I'm guessing that her jeans are a reasonably high-waisted jean as well. So for me, I knew that I would need to lengthen this pattern because I'm quite tall anyway, 5'8", 5'9", something around that mark. I really must measure myself at some point because I keep just saying 5'8", 5'9". I'm going to put that on the to-do list for next week. Now, as I say, the pattern is a cropped length, so even if I wanted it to be at the point where this model was going to be, I knew that I was going to have to lengthen that pattern because Tilly's patterns always come up a bit short on me. But I also didn't want it to be so cropped. For me, I knew that I'd be forever tugging it down. I just wouldn't really feel comfortable in it. And so what I've done is I've actually extended the pattern by 4 inches, which is about 10 centimetres, I think, so 100 millimetres. Now that's quite a lot. And so I did have to do some pattern adjusting. Now, I watched 2 different people's videos on what they did in relation to that. Now, the lovely Michelle from Sewing Bunny, she did a video, one of her videos she mentions about lengthening the pearl cardigan. And the other person was the lovely Karen from Sewn on the... No, she's not Sewn on the Time, that's Tamlin. Karen is from So Little Time, and I watched both of their videos because they both took a slightly different approach to it in terms of lengthening the bodice part. So lengthening the back wasn't too much of a problem because it's just a standard sort of back piece that you would get on any sort of jumper or cardigan, but obviously the wrap portion at the front, it was going to throw out the details. So I actually went with the method that Karen suggested, and as I say, I'm going to link that detail in the description box below so that you can head over to Karen's video if you want to, and also Michelle's, because her option would work just as well, I think, perhaps if you were not making such a sizable adjustment that I was making. Now, Karen's way was to continue the line of this bit, but it meant that because obviously I'd added some additional length onto the pattern, I would have to add some additional paper to the pattern over in this section here so that the line of the side lined up. Okay, and so that's what I did. Now, in terms of fit, I'm quite happy with the length. I possibly would make it marginally shorter next time, maybe take 1/2 inch to 1 inch off that sort of alteration that I made. And I think that would also help with the fact that because I had to lengthen the width of the pieces because of trying to keep the line of the crossover right, it has come out a little bit roomy. There's a little bit too much extra material in there. So I think just by shortening the amount that I'd sort of added in, if you like, so if I took it down to 3 inches, that would just sort of shorten the side off a little bit and make it a little bit more, a little bit less fabric. Now, the other thing that I think that I would do is I would not necessarily do the tie wrap that goes all the way round. Now, with the Tilly and the Buttons wrap, you'll see on the back here, the tie actually kind of, you pop it through one of the holes that you create in the side seam and it wraps right round the back. Now, I just find myself adjusting myself too much. And although I will wear this cardigan, I think if I was to make it again in the future, I would actually not put the hole on the side. I would put like a button on the inside to do it up on this one side, and then I would just have a tie coming out from the side piece and then from this front bit down here. So basically this bit here I would have a tie bit coming from here. I'm going to stand up so that you can see that a bit better. So basically I would have a tie coming from this seam here on the side, and then one from here, and then on the inside, rather than having this detail where it slots into the hole at the side, I would just put like a button or a popper or something on the inside to like keep that together, so that I don't feel that I need to keep sort of adjusting myself to it. I've just got a little white strappy top on underneath, just because the crossover comes quite low and I don't want to feel like I'm having to kind of adjust the front all the time. I think perhaps if I'd made it in more of a crop style, I'd have less material here, and therefore perhaps this would sit better, and maybe I wouldn't feel that I need to have a top underneath, and I could wear it more as a top rather than a cardigan. But if I'm honest with you, I'm not sure that I would do that anyway. So overall, I'm really happy with this as an initial make. Tilly's instructions, as always, are really good. That's really clear. And there is also a tutorial on the Tilly and the Buttons YouTube channel for how to do the little hole bit on the cardigan, if you want to go down that sort of option. It does obviously explain it in the instructions, but just so that if you're just a little bit unsure of how to do that, there is that YouTube video as well, which is quite helpful, and I will link that in the description box below. So that's the Tilly and the Buttons pearl cardigan. Now on to the Bastian culottes by Jennifer Lauren Handmade. Now I decided initially that I would make a toile for the culottes. I haven't made a huge amount of skirts or culottes or trousers particularly, and the ones that I have made tend to be kind of elastic waisted, and I've never been particularly happy with any of the finish items, and I was a little bit scared, if you like, apprehensive shall we say, about the fact that obviously this didn't have an elastic waistband and how the fit would work. So I decided that I would make a toile garment, and I had just some polycotton, navy polycotton in my stash that I thought would be useful, and I could hopefully, if it was worked out okay, still wear them as a wearable toile, which I have actually been doing. I've really enjoyed wearing these. I'd quite like to make another pair in a dark fabric, if I'm honest with you, in a slightly nicer fabric than this, but actually I found it was a really useful make to make up the toile. I was able to wear them a few times to make sure I was happy with the fit, rather than just sort of, you know, making the toile, trying it on and then just going from that. I was able to sort of wear them a few times and make sure I was really happy with the fit, which I was. So I'm not sure how well this is going to show up, but this is my toile. Sorry it's a little bit creased, but as I say, I have been wearing it and they're due to go in the wash now. So the Jennifer Lauren Handmade Bastian culottes are a really interesting, quite fun design, I think. Now, if any of you have been watching the Sewing Bee of late, they had a few weeks ago I think it was on 30s week, they showed some sort of sailory type trousers that have got this sort of button up scenario on the front detail, and that's how you kind of get into them. So it's got one either side, but actually you only need to do one side to get in and out. And I had just made these at the point when that episode aired. And I was like, oh, I've done something very similar. I think on the Sewing Bee ones, the actual waistband kind of comes right across the front, and there's another set of buttons in the middle. But the principle of that sort of button down style was there. So I guess there's like a nod to a vintage style with these Bastian culottes. Obviously, they're, you know, culottes, it's not a skirt, it's like a shorts scenario. And you can make the Bastian culottes in two lengths, either sort of a knee length or kind of a midi length. And I've gone with the knee length because I don't really find that midi suits me particularly. I feel a little bit frumpy, if I'm honest, myself in a midi. I don't think that about other people, just on myself, I just don't feel comfortable in it. So I knew that I was going to make the shorts version. I had in my mind that I might try the longer version, but when I came to do my trial, I didn't actually have enough fabric to do the longer version anyway, so I'd made the trial and in the shorter version. So that's what I decided to do. As you can see, obviously there you've got this lovely sort of front placket bit, which is the way that you get in and out of it. So in terms of fabrics for this, you can make it in quite a range of fabrics. So you can make it in a heavier fabric for sort of more wintry months, or in lighter fabrics for the summer months. So it's really versatile, and I think in a sort of a heavier fabric with some tights and boots and things for winter, I think it would look really good. So it says the Bastian cots are suitable for a wide range of light to medium woven fabrics with some drape. For summer, choose your favourite fabrics from cotton, lawn, voile, poplin to linen and chambray, and for winter choose mid-weight denims, pinwheel, baby cords, flannel, wool and wool blends. So this is a really versatile pattern from that point of view. The other thing to say about Jennifer Lauren Handmade is that she does two sort of size ranges. She does the Jennifer Lauren original size chart, she calls it, and then the curve size. So the waist on the smallest size is a 24.5 inch waist and a 35.5 inch hip, and then that goes right up on the curve range to a 51.75 inch waist and a 32.75 inch hip. So a really great size range, which is really lovely to see. As you can tell, I'm not a small person, so it's really nice to feel like I'm not, I sit very comfortably within a size range rather than being sort of at the top. So that's really really lovely inclusive pattern, and it's so nice to see that lots of pattern companies now are being much more size inclusive. So as I say, I made them in a very inexpensive polycotton fabric just to try them out. Now in terms of changes to this pattern, I've added an inch to the rise of this pattern, just because I know that I'm quite long in the torso. Is it in the torso? That's probably not the right description, is it? I'm quite long in the body from my crotch to my waist height, and I knew that I wanted these to definitely be high rise to fit comfortably over my mum tum and hopefully disguise that particular area. So I added an inch to the waist, and the other thing I did is I very slightly tweaked the seam allowance on the outside seam just to give me just a smidge more. I think the seam allowance is 15 millimeters, so 5/8 of an inch, and I just added like a couple of extra millimeters on either side of that seam allowance, just to give me just a smidge more, just a smidge more in the waist area, and just to make them comfortable. Probably wasn't massively necessary, but I'm glad that I did it, and I did transfer that to when I was making the actual garment as well. So those were the changes that I made. So in terms of my actual make, my finished make, I'm going to put some pictures up of me wearing it and a little bit of video as well. So the fabric I used was a cotton poplin fabric. It is, again, as I say, from Pound Fabrics, and it's a kind of a petrol-y blue base, and then it's got kind of a Hawaiian flower design on it, and it picks, the reason I went for the teal for the pearl cardigan is it picks up the teal in the leaves of the flowers. So yeah, I transferred all of the changes that I'd made on my toile into my actual garment, and I'm really chuffed with those. I think they're really, I think they've come out really well. And I've just chosen some reasonably inexpensive, well, very inexpensive buttons that I picked up on Amazon for that particular make. And the buttons that I used on this particular make for my toile, again, very inexpensive. These are a hemline button that I picked up from when I was in Hobbycraft. But obviously it's the hemline range, so you'd be able to pick those up at many different places. But they're quite nice because they've got kind of a little sort of fleck within them. So that is the two makes. I'm really delighted with them. As I say, with the pearl cardigan, I would make a couple of tweaks should I make them next time. With the Bastian culottes, I feel like I've made the tweaks that I need to make, and should I want to make them in the future, I would do exactly the same, provided obviously my measurements at that point were still the same. But I definitely do have some plans to make some more wintry ones as we come into sort of autumn winter, maybe in a cord or something. That would be quite nice. So would I recommend the two patterns? Absolutely, definitely. My favourite out of the two I would definitely say is the Jennifer Lauren handmade Bastian culottes, but I think that's purely down to the fact that I've sorted the fit on those, whereas the pearl cardigan, I still feel that I've got some tweaks to make to get that to the point where I'm really happy with it. So moving on to what else I've been up to this week, I was working on a pattern test, so hopefully I will be able to show that to you in the next couple of weeks. And the other thing that I've made is for the challenge being run by So Joey, which is the t-shirt for summer challenge. Now by the time this comes out, the challenge will actually be over because it runs until the 30th of June. But this is one of the t-shirts that I've made for my older son. Now again, this is a refashion of a t-shirt that was my husband's that he had decided that he didn't love, and I'll pop a picture in of that t-shirt as was. And so I have just refashioned it into a t-shirt for my son. I have used the Waves and Wild Hot Chocolate, which is actually a sweatshirt pattern, but what I did was just cut it to sort of t-shirt length on the sleeves. I obviously didn't do the henband at the bottom, and I've just used the neckline that would have been on the sweatshirt, so hopefully that's worked out fine. I haven't tried this on my son yet because he's at school at the moment, but hopefully this one will fit quite nicely. I've been quite cheeky. I've reused the hemline that was on the original t-shirt on both the sleeves and the bottom, and the thing that took me the most amount of time, because this was such a quick make, was I wanted to reuse the neckband that was on the original t-shirt, because this is kind of a viscose type jersey that's quite sort of lightweight and fluid, and I knew that this fabric itself wouldn't make a very good neckband. It wouldn't go in very well, whereas the neckband on the actual t-shirt is more of a ribbing style that they've that's sort of printed in obviously the same design as the actual fabric, so that it pairs up really nicely. So I spent time removing it from the original t-shirt because obviously it needed to be much smaller than the original neckband, so I couldn't just use it as was. So that obviously took some time to get it off because it had been, you know, overlocked or cover stitched, it probably would have been on, and so there was quite a lot of stitches to get through, but it came off eventually. So that was the bit that took me the longest amount of time, and therefore, you know, it's been a really simple, easy pattern to make. Now, in terms of plans for the next week, I am just setting myself the goal of making one item. I've got a really hectic week at work coming up. I'm now working more hours, so don't have quite as much time for sewing as I would like to. So I'm just going to plan one make for this week, and that is the sorbetto top from Seeing Work. Now, this is a free pattern, and I've just sort of stumbled across this particular make, and I'm going to pop a stock photo up for it. And I think I really like the detail of this sort of boxed pleat, would you call it, at the front. And I just think it's an extra nice little design detail that sort of helps to make like a woven top just a little bit more interesting. So I thought that'd be worth giving a go. Now, the fabric I thought I'd give it a go in is this fabric. I bought this a couple of months ago maybe, and it is a green leafed cotton poplin, and I think it will make a really cute top, and very sort of hoping that this one will be a nice easy one to whip up. So that's my plan for this particular piece of fabric and for my week ahead. So I haven't bought anything this week in terms of sewing. However, I did buy something a couple of weeks ago and I forgot to show you it. It's just one small simple thing. It's not fabric, it's just something to help me be more organised within my sewing room. And I don't know about you, but I've bought a couple of Mariflex threads. That's the Gutermann Mariflex thread that's got the slight stretch to it, so that when you're sewing with jersey fabrics that you don't have to use a zigzag or a lightning stitch, you can just do a straight stitch because it's got some give within it. And so I have got sort of four different types of thread that I tend to use. Behind me you'll see a box of moon thread, and I tend to use those with my overlocker when I'm after different types of shades. I've got a few overlocker cones as well, so that's sort of the second type of thread. And then I've got a load of Gutermann threads that I use as well. And so I wanted to make the distinction between my Mariflex threads and my regular sort of Gutermann threads. And so I've bought one of these spool pods. So they're a kind of a silicone make, if you like, and they're by the they're by the company Pattern Trace. And I've only got two so far, but the idea is that you can put your spool of thread in and also your bobbin that's of the same type. And I just thought that was a really good way to kind of, for me to just keep on top of the fact that those are a different type of thread, so that I don't mix them up with my regular thread. So I just thought I'd show that to you just in case anybody was interested in those ones. And I picked this particular one up from Jenny Stitches when I made an order with her a couple of weeks ago, and I forgot to show you guys, so I thought I'd share it with you now. Well, I think that's everything from me today. I do hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please do give me a like. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love it if you would consider doing so. Thank you so much to everyone that does watch my videos and subscribes and comments. It really does mean the world to me. And a massive thank you to Drew, who shouted me out on her last Friday sews. I really do appreciate it. It's so nice that we can do these sort of things for each other in the sewing community. I have mentioned other vloggers in the past too, and I will certainly be continuing to do that in other videos as I go along. So thank you, Drew. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't checked out Drew's channel, I'll link it in the description box below. But for now, I hope you have a fantastic week. Take care. Happy sewing. Bye bye.